Archivist First Class Tech was not having a good day. The small, blue-skinned alien's 6 fingers trembled as he scrolled through the classified files on his terminal. 300 cycles of meticulous record-keeping, and never had he encountered something like this. "You requested my presence, Archivist?" Elder Moole's gravelly voice came from the doorway of Tech's cramped office, deep within the bowels of the Galactic Archives. "Yes, Elder. Please secure the door." The ancient Vrzan complied, his leathery face creasing with concern. "Is this about the human problem?" Tech nodded solemnly. "I've completed my analysis of the discrepancies in the official records." He gestured to the holographic display. "What we've been telling the Council about humans, it's not merely incomplete, it's deliberately misleading." Elder Moole lowered his considerable bulk into a reinforced chair. "Explain." "The official archives state that humans are a Class 3 species, moderately adaptable, technologically competent, but unremarkable, physiologically fragile, and psychologically predictable." Tech's antennae twitched nervously. "The classification was established when we first encountered them 50 cycles ago. And this classification is incorrect? Catastrophically so." Tech pulled up a series of classified incident reports. "According to restricted military records, humans have survived in environments that would kill most Class 5 species. Their technological advancement rate outpaces our predictive models by 300%. And as for psychological predictability..." He shuddered visibly. "What aren't you telling me, Archivist? The hegemony has been systematically downplaying human capabilities in all official documentation. I've found evidence of at least 27 incidents that were scrubbed from public records." Tech lowered his voice. "Including the Battle of Proxima Centauri." Elder Moole's eyes widened. "That's impossible. Proxima Centauri was an unfortunate mining accident." "No, Elder. It was a military engagement. One human vessel against an entire hegemony battle group." Tech's voice became a whisper. "The human ship won. Preposterous. I would have been informed." "With respect, Elder, you were not. The Council decided that certain truths about humans would cause panic among the galactic citizenry." Elder Moole stared at the classified reports, his ancient eyes scanning the data. "This can't be right. It says here a human survived in hard vacuum for almost 2 minutes?" "Yes. And there's more." Tech pulled up another file. "You're familiar with the Krell, correct? The apex predators of 7 systems?" "Of course. Vicious creatures. We quarantined their homeworld centuries ago. A human killed one, with a primitive blade weapon, while suffering from multiple fractures." Elder Moole's skin paled to a light gray. "Why is this information restricted? The public should be warned." "That's just it, Elder," Tech interrupted. "The Council isn't restricting this information to prevent panic. They're hiding it because humans don't know." "Don't know what?" "How different they are. How dangerous they could be if they realized their potential." Tech leaned forward. "The humans think they're ordinary, average. They have no idea that by galactic standards they're..." He searched for the right word. "Terrifying." Elder Moole was silent for a long moment. "What do you recommend?" "The archives exist to preserve truth, not bury it. We should..." A sharp beep from the terminal interrupted him. Tech glanced down and froze. "What is it?" Elder Moole demanded. "A human delegation has just arrived at the Central Archives. They're requesting access to our historical records about their species." Tech looked up, eyes wide with alarm. "They say they've found discrepancies in their own copies. They want to compare notes." Elder Moole slowly rose from his chair. "Deny them nothing. But the Council's directives..." "If what you've shown me is true, Archivist, then the last thing we want is for humans to think we're hiding something from them." The Elder moved toward the door. "I'll greet them personally. And Tech?" "Yes, Elder? Back up everything you found. We may need it sooner than we thought." Captain Jack Reed of the Earth Diplomatic Corps straightened his uniform as he waited. In the ornate reception hall of the Galactic Archives, behind him stood his small team: Dr. Lena Bell, xenobiologist, Marcus Gray, historical analyst, and Tom Wilson, security specialist. "They're stalling," Tom muttered, his hand never straying, far from his concealed sidearm. "Patience," Jack replied quietly. The archives are the most respected institution in the galaxy. If anyone will give us straight answers, it's them. Lena adjusted her translator. I still don't understand why our historical records don't match theirs. The first contact protocols should have included complete data exchange. That's exactly what we're here to find out, Marcus said, scrolling through his tablet. The discrepancies are too systematic to be accidents. The massive doors swung open, revealing a wizened alien with gray skin and ornate robes. Greetings, humans, the alien said with a formal bow. I am Elder Mool, Senior Curator of the Galactic Archives. Please forgive the delay. Your request is unprecedented. Jack stepped forward. Thank you for seeing us, Elder. I'm Captain Reed. We appreciate your willingness to help resolve these historical inconsistencies. Of course, Captain. The pursuit of truth is our highest calling. Elder Mool gestured for them to follow. Come. Archivist Tech has prepared a research terminal for your use. As they walked through the cavernous hallways, Jack noticed the curious looks from various alien staff. Some appeared nervous, others openly fascinated. Strange reaction to a routine diplomatic visit. They arrived at a small chamber where a blue-skinned alien was frantically organizing data crystals. Archivist Tech, Elder Mool announced, are human guests. Tech nearly dropped a crystal when he turned to face them. Welcome to the archives, he stammered. Jack exchanged a puzzled glance with Lena. Why was everyone so on edge? Thank you, Jack said. We're particularly interested in records regarding human physiological and psychological assessments made by the Galactic Council. Tech's antennae twitched violently. Yes, about that. The archivist will provide you with all available information, Elder Mool interrupted smoothly. Perhaps you could explain the specific discrepancies you found? Marcus stepped forward, displaying his tablet. We've identified 37 instances where galactic records accessible to Earth downplay human capabilities or misrepresent historical events involving humans. For example, Lena added, the mining accident at Proxima Centauri. Our records show it was actually a pirate attack repelled by the ECS Defiant. Jack noticed both aliens freeze momentarily. Most concerning, Jack continued, is the consistent underclassification of human adaptive capabilities. Our scientific exchange programs suggest we should be rated at least Class 4, possibly 5. Yet official galactic documentation maintains we're Class 3. This has implications. What sort of implications, Captain? Elder Mool asked carefully. Resource allocation, research grant eligibility, territorial expansion rights, trade partnerships. Jack maintained a diplomatic smile. All are tied to species classification metrics. Tom, ever alert, noticed the subtle shift in the alien's posture. Is there a problem with the captain's request? Elder Mool and Tech exchanged a long look before the elder spoke. No problem. However, I believe we should move this discussion to a more secure location. Why would historical records require security? Jack asked. Because, Captain Reed, Elder Mool said solemnly. What you're asking about isn't merely a matter of bureaucratic misclassification. The discrepancies you've found were deliberate. Jack's diplomatic mask slipped. You're admitting to systematic falsification of records? Not us, Tech blurted. The Council. The archives only maintain the official records. We don't. Archivist, Elder Mool warned. No, Elder. They deserve the truth. Tech turned to the humans. The Council has been suppressing information about human capabilities for decades. They feared the reaction of other species if they knew what humans can actually do. A heavy silence fell over the room. Finally, Jack spoke, his voice dangerously calm. Show us everything. The secure viewing chamber was eerily silent except for the occasional gasp from Dr. Lena Bell or the muttered curse from Marcus Gray as they reviewed the unredacted files. Captain Jack Reed maintained his composure, but his knuckles had turned white where he gripped the edge of the console. This can't be right, Lena whispered, staring at physiological comparisons between humans and other spacefaring species. According to this, we're borderline Class 6 in terms of environmental adaptation. Class 6 species are mythological, Marcus said automatically, then paused. Aren't they? Elder Mool sighed heavily. Not mythological, simply rare enough. to be relegated to historical footnotes. The last confirmed Class 6 species destroyed themselves in a civil war 20,000 years ago. Before that, they had conquered 17 star systems in less than a century. Tom Wilson had been unusually quiet, studying combat footage that had been censored from Earth's records. Why would the Council hide this from us? These records suggest we're significantly more durable than most galactic species. That's not something you can keep secret forever. That, said Archivist Tech, is precisely the question I asked. The policy was established 50 years ago, after your first deep space encounter with the Drev. Jack frowned. The trade delegation? That was entirely peaceful. From your perspective, yes, Elder Mool said. From the Drev's perspective, it was terrifying. Your diplomatic team survived a shipboard fire that would have killed Drev crew members. One of your security officers lifted a fallen beam that would have required mechanical assistance for any Drev to move. And most disturbing to them, your team continued negotiations for 6 hours without food or rest, what the Drev considered extreme endurance. That's ridiculous, Tom scoffed. Any human could do that. Precisely, Tech said pointedly. Any human, no Drev. Marcus looked up from a historical record. This says humans can process toxic compounds that would kill most species. It specifically mentions alcohol, a neurotoxin that you drink for pleasure, Elder Mool confirmed. Most species find this utterly incomprehensible. Lena had moved on to psychological assessments. These tests, they're measuring all the wrong things. They're designed for species with completely different evolutionary paths. Keep reading, Tech urged. She scrolled further, then stopped abruptly. This can't be accurate. It says humans exhibit pathological altruism toward non-kin groups and suicidal risk assessment patterns. What does that even mean? Jack demanded. It means, Elder Mool explained, that humans will attempt to save complete strangers, even aliens of different species, at serious risk to themselves. No other known intelligent species does this consistently. It's considered a form of mental instability by galactic psychological standards. Jack ran a hand through his hair. So, we're classified as unstable, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous. Is that it? That's the official classification, Tech confirmed. But the unofficial assessment is more complex. The Council believes humans are a species with immense potential, restrained only by your own lack of awareness of how exceptional you are by galactic standards. They're afraid, Tom realized. They think if we knew all this, we'd become a threat. Some Council members, yes. Elder Mool nodded solemnly. Others simply worry about disruption. Humans advance rapidly, adapt quickly, and form alliances easily. These traits have historically led to significant power shifts in the galactic order. So they've been handling us with kid gloves, Jack said bitterly. Keeping us in the dark, limiting our advancement. While studying you intently, Tech added, pulling up more classified files. These are research programs specifically focused on human capabilities, military applications, biological weapons resistance, endurance testing. Marcus looked horrified. They've been experimenting on humans? Not directly, Elder Mool clarified. Most of this research comes from observation during joint operations, medical emergencies, and similar situations where humans naturally demonstrated exceptional capabilities. Jack stood suddenly. I've seen enough. This information changes everything about Earth's relationship with the Galactic Council. What will you do, Captain? Elder Mool asked. Jack looked around at his stunned team, then back to the ancient alien. First, we're taking copies of everything. Then we're going back to Earth. Our government needs to know the truth. The Council will see this as a breach of protocol, Tech warned. Good, Jack replied firmly. It's time they dealt with humans on equal terms. Admiral Karen West stared at the holographic display in the Joint Chiefs' secure conference room beneath the Rocky Mountains. One by one, the assembled military and political leaders of Earth's united government fell silent as the implications sank in. You're certain this data is authentic? President Alvarez finally asked. Captain Jack Reed nodded. Verified by 3 independent analysis teams, Madam President. The Galactic Archive's security encryption is beyond our ability to fake. This is genuine. Then we've been systematically deceived for 50 years, Defense Secretary Patel said, his voice tight with controlled anger. Dr. Lena Bell leaned forward. It's more complex than simple deception, sir. The galactic species genuinely perceive us differently than we perceive ourselves. What seems ordinary to us appears extraordinary, even frightening to them. Give me the highlights again, Admiral West requested. In plain language. Marcus Gray cleared his throat. Physiologically, we're far more durable than most spacefaring species. We can survive in environmental conditions that would kill many of them. We heal faster, endure more pain, and can go longer without food or water. We're stronger, pound for pound, Tom Wilson added. Not just stronger than we've been led to believe. Stronger than many species thought possible for an intelligent life form. And psychologically? President Alvarez prompted. That's where it gets truly interesting, Lena said. Our emotional range, risk assessment, and social behaviors are considered aberrant by galactic standards. We form bonds quickly, trust more readily, and show altruism to a degree most species find irrational. In military terms, Jack continued, we're natural shock troops. We can fight longer, survive worse conditions, and persevere through situations that would cause other species to retreat. The Galactic Council has classified knowledge of at least 17 incidents where humans in emergency situations performed feats that qualified as physically impossible by their physiological models. Admiral West frowned. If we're so formidable, why haven't we dominated our interactions with alien species? 2 reasons, Marcus explained. First, we didn't know. We assumed we were dealing with equals or superiors, so we behaved accordingly. Second, technology is still the great equalizer. Their ships are faster, their weapons more advanced. Our physical advantages don't overcome a significant technology gap. What are our options, Captain? The President asked Jack directly. We have 3, Madam President. First, we can confront the Council directly, demand reclassification and compensation for 50 years of deliberate disadvantage. That sounds potentially hostile, Secretary Patel observed. It would certainly be perceived that way, Jack agreed. The second option is subtler. We use this knowledge privately, without revealing we have it. We leverage our newly understood advantages while letting the Council believe their deception is intact. Duplicitous, the President noted, but potentially effective. And the third option? Jack took a deep breath. We do something completely unexpected. Something quintessentially human that would confirm their fears about our unpredictability, while simultaneously alleviating them. I'm not following, Admiral West said. We approach the Council openly. We reveal that we know the truth, but instead of demanding concessions or threatening action, we propose a new era of genuine partnership. We acknowledge our differences and offer to help create a more balanced galactic community. Silence fell over the room as the leadership contemplated this approach. They'd never believe it, Secretary Patel said eventually. They'd assume it was a trap or trick. Exactly, Jack replied, because no other species would make such an offer sincerely. But we would. That's precisely what makes humans different. Lena nodded enthusiastically. The psychological profiles in the archives confirm it. Other species would expect vengeance, advantage-seeking, or strategic withdrawal. A genuine offer of partnership despite betrayal is the one response they haven't prepared for. President Alvarez stood, walking slowly around the table. Gentlemen, Doctor, I appreciate your analysis, but this decision requires broader consultation. I'll convene the full cabinet and the United Nations Security Council. She paused, looking at each person in turn. Until then, this information remains classified at the highest level. If what you've shown us is accurate, the galactic community is watching our every move, expecting us to behave according to their models. Let's not confirm their fears by reacting precipitously. As the meeting adjourned, Jack found himself walking alongside Admiral West in the corridor. You think it'll work? The Admiral asked quietly. This third option of yours? Jack shrugged. Honestly, I don't know. But I do know this. If they're right about us being different, then the worst thing we could do is prove we're just like everyone else. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so still. 300 representatives from the most powerful spacefaring civilizations sat in stunned silence as Ambassador James Miller of Earth completed his presentation. And so, he concluded, standing calm and composed at the center of the chamber. Humanity now understands the full nature of our classification within galactic society. We understand the Council's concerns regarding our potential. We acknowledge the uniqueness of our physiological and psychological traits by galactic standards. High Counselor Vex, the ancient Trill who had presided over the Council for nearly 40 cycles, leaned forward. And what does Earth demand in recompense for this misclassification? The chamber tensed, awaiting the human's response. Earth demands nothing, High Counselor. A murmur of confusion rippled through the assembly. Instead, Miller continued, we propose a comprehensive reassessment of galactic classification protocols, not just for humans, but for all species. The current system clearly contains flaws that have led to misunderstandings and missed opportunities. Counselor Drawl of the Krell Imperium rose, his predatory form towering over his delegation. This is absurd. The humans should be demanding reparations, threatening sanctions, or at minimum insisting on immediate reclassification. What game are you playing, Ambassador? Miller smiled slightly. No game, Counselor. We simply recognize that a system designed to categorize and rank diverse species will inevitably create inequities. Rather than merely improving our own position within a flawed system, we suggest improving the system itself. Unprecedented, whispered a delegate loud enough to be heard throughout the chamber. High Counselor Vex studied the human carefully. Ambassador Miller, your proposal is unexpected. The Council will need time to consider its implications. Of course, High Counselor. However, there is one immediate matter Earth would like to address. And that is the classified research, programs studying human capabilities without our knowledge or consent. Miller's voice remained diplomatic, but a new firmness entered his tone. These must cease immediately. Any future research into human physiology or psychology must include human scientists as full partners. A tense silence fell over the chamber. Such programs were never meant to be discovered by their subjects. Finally, Counselor Lema of the Arborian Collective spoke. This seems a reasonable request given the circumstances. I move that we approve this measure immediately, as a show of good faith. To everyone's surprise, Counselor Drawl seconded the motion. The humans have proven more perceptive than we anticipated. Let us acknowledge this reality. The vote passed, unanimously. As the session adjourned, Miller found himself approached by Archivist Tech, now wearing formal diplomatic attire. Ambassador, Tech said quietly, I've been appointed as liaison to the Earth delegation for the classification reassessment project. I hope my previous candor hasn't created difficulties. Miller shook his head. On the contrary, Archivist, your honesty may have prevented a serious diplomatic incident. Earth appreciates truth-tellers. Then you're not angry about the deception? Disappointed, perhaps. But anger would be counterproductive. Miller gestured around the chamber. Look at the reaction today. Many expected us to respond with outrage, threats, or demands. By choosing a different path, we've created an opportunity for genuine change. Tech's antennae twitched thoughtfully. A most unusual strategy. Is it? Or is it simply that the Council has been misreading humans all along? Miller smiled. Your psychological profiles described us as unpredictable, but failed to recognize that our unpredictability often manifests as choosing cooperation over conflict. As they walked toward the diplomatic reception area, Tech lowered his voice. There are those on the Council who still fear human potential. They believe today's reasonable response is merely strategic, that once humans gain greater influence, your true nature will emerge. And what do you believe, Archivist? Tech considered. For a moment. I believe the archives contain many truths about humans, but perhaps missed the most important one. You are not merely physically resilient, but morally adaptable. Where other species cling to unchanging principles, humans constantly reevaluate and evolve your ethical frameworks. Some would call that moral relativism, Miller noted. Perhaps. But it also allows you to understand perspectives vastly different from your own. Tech gestured to the diverse species mingling at the reception. In a galaxy of thousands of civilizations, that may be your most valuable trait of all. The human delegation's temporary quarters in the diplomatic sector of Galactic Central were significantly larger than they had been 3 months ago. What had started as a modest suite for Ambassador Miller and his small team had expanded to accommodate 30 human specialists in fields ranging from xenobiology to cultural anthropology. Dr. Lena Bell adjusted the holographic display showing comparative physiological responses across 17 species. Beside her, 3 alien scientists watched with fascination. The key difference, she explained, isn't raw strength or endurance, but adaptability under stress. Human performance actually improves in certain crisis situations due to adrenaline response, while most species experience significant degradation. Fascinating, said Dr. Meave, a Trill neurobiologist. And you claim this evolved from your predator-prey history? Partially. We were persistence hunters. We chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. But we were also prey ourselves for much of our evolution. Across the room, Captain Jack Reed was deep in conversation with a group of military observers from 4 different species. No, we don't consider it particularly brave, he was saying. Rescuing your comrades is standard procedure, not exceptional conduct. But the radiation levels in that scenario would cause cellular breakdown in most species, argued General Thax of the Vrak Defense Force. For humans, such exposure is dangerous but not immediately fatal, Jack explained. We have medical treatments that can counter radiation damage if administered quickly enough. The general's exoskeleton clicked thoughtfully. Your species treats potentially lethal situations as calculated risks rather than absolute dangers. Most intriguing. Meanwhile, Ambassador Miller and Deputy Secretary Alex Park were meeting with High Counselor Vex and the Classification Review Committee in the adjoining conference room. The preliminary findings are clear, Vex was saying. The current classification system is fundamentally flawed. It was designed 10,000 years ago when the galactic community was far less diverse. Our proposal introduces multidimensional metrics, Park explained, pointing to the complex diagram hovering above the table. Rather than simple numerical rankings, species would be assessed across 12 independent domains of capability. Most importantly, Miller added, the system removes implicit value judgments. Higher numbers don't mean better, just different evolutionary adaptations suited to different environments and challenges. Counselor Lima studied the proposal carefully. This would fundamentally change power dynamics within the Council. Many traditionally influential species would lose their claim to inherent superiority. Is that necessarily problematic? Miller asked gently. For some, very much so, Vex acknowledged. The Krell, for instance, have built their entire cultural identity around their apex predator status. Which remains valid in certain contexts, Park pointed out. They are supreme biological predators, but predation is only one dimension of capability. The meeting continued for hours, delving into the implications of such a profound restructuring of galactic society. When they finally adjourned, Miller found himself walking back to the human quarters alongside High Counselor Vex. You've created quite a stir, Ambassador, the elderly Trill remarked. In 3 months, you've challenged assumptions that have stood for millennia. With respect, Counselor, we merely pointed out flaws that were already evident. The archives themselves contained the contradictions. True, but it took a human perspective to recognize their significance. Vex paused near a viewport overlooking the spectacular cityscape of Galactic Central. Do you know why I supported your initiative despite the disruption it causes? I assumed you saw the logical merits of the proposal. Partially. But mainly, because in 3,000 years of Council service, I've learned to recognize when a paradigm has reached its end. The ancient aliens' compound eyes reflected the city lights. The old classification system served its purpose when the galaxy was simpler. But with over 4,000 spacefaring civilizations now engaged in galactic society, we need more sophisticated frameworks. Miller nodded. Change is never easy. Especially for long-lived species, Vex agreed. Some council members have held the same beliefs for centuries. Your human capacity for adaptation, your comfort with change, is perhaps your most disruptive quality. Disruptive needn't mean destructive, Miller observed. Indeed. Which is why I've recommended you personally to lead the implementation committee. Vex turned to face Miller directly. The proposal has been approved, Ambassador. The council voted while you were meeting with the subcommittee. Miller blinked in surprise. That's unexpected. I anticipated months of debate. There will be resistance, make no mistake. But the majority recognize the necessity. Vex's mandibles formed what passed for a smile among his kind. Perhaps what the archives weren't saying about humans is that you were exactly what the galaxy needed. As Miller absorbed this news, his communicator chimed softly. A message from Earth. The United Government had approved the next phase of the integration plan. 50 human specialists in various fields would be joining the delegation next month. The quiet revolution had begun. 5 years after the classification reform, the Galactic Archives had undergone a transformation as profound as the society they documented. Archivist First Class Tech, now Director of Interspecies Historical Reconciliation, led Ambassador Miller through the newly renovated Hall of Emergent Civilizations. The exhibit on human adaptation has become quite popular, Tech noted as they passed a group of school-age aliens from a dozen different worlds, listening raptly to a human educator explaining Earth's diverse biomes. I'm more impressed by the comparative evolution displays, Miller replied. Seeing Earth's development alongside other worlds provides valuable perspective. They continued into a quieter section where interactive terminals allowed visitors to explore detailed species profiles. The new classification system has been fully implemented across all archive resources, Tech said proudly. 98% of known spacefaring species have completed their multidimensional assessments. And the results? Fascinating patterns have emerged. Species that evolved on harsher worlds consistently show higher adaptability metrics. Those from stable environments excel at specialization. The correlation is strong enough that we can now predict certain capabilities based on planetary origin alone. Miller smiled. And humans? Still outliers in many respects, Tech admitted, but no longer treated as anomalies to be feared. Your species profile has become a valuable reference point for understanding adaptive potential. They paused before a dramatic holographic display showing the infamous Battle of Proxima Centauri. The truth now fully acknowledged in the official record. The military academies use this as a case study now, Miller observed. Not just for tactics, but for cross-species cooperation. Captain Rivera's decision to evacuate the Drev cruiser rather than pursue the pirate vessels changed many perceptions, demonstrating that human altruism is not merely a psychological quirk, but a viable survival strategy. Tech's antennae twitched with amusement. The Krell Strategic Command is still struggling to incorporate that concept into their battle doctrines. They moved on to the Archive's crown jewel, the newly established Chamber of Collaborative History, where representatives from dozens of species work together to reconcile conflicting historical narratives. This would have been unthinkable 6 years ago, Tech said quietly. The idea that history itself could be a cooperative endeavor rather than a tool of political power. Truth is always collaborative, Miller replied. No single perspective captures it completely. As they watched, a heated but respectful debate unfolded between historians from 3 species that had once been bitter enemies. They were reconstructing the complex events of the Orion conflict, comparing primary sources and eyewitness accounts. The real triumph isn't just acknowledging human capabilities, Miller continued. It's creating a framework where all species can recognize both their strengths and limitations without shame or hubris. Tech nodded thoughtfully. The archives now document what species can learn from each other, not merely how they differ. Their tour concluded in Tech's new office, a far cry from the cramped room where he had first discovered the classification discrepancies. Through the panoramic window, they could see the sprawling Academy of Interspecies Studies, where thousands of students from across the galaxy now trained together. I received a fascinating report this morning, Tech mentioned as they settled into comfortable chairs. The Krell have officially requested human advisors for their planetary defense forces. Miller raised an eyebrow. The same Krell who insisted humans were too emotionally unstable for military cooperation? The very same. It seems they've finally acknowledged that your risk assessment and crisis management approaches offer advantages their traditional methods lack. Progress, Miller acknowledged. Slow, but steady. And the new joint colonization project? Tech inquired. Proceeding well. 7 species working together to terraform a marginal world, each contributing their particular strengths. Miller smiled. Humans are handling the most environmentally stressed zones, of course. Of course. Tech's expression grew more serious. And what of the dissenting voices? The isolationist coalition still argues that such rapid integration threatens cultural preservation. They raise valid concerns, Miller admitted. Which is why we've established the cultural heritage reserves. Not every adaptation needs to be immediate or universal. A soft chime indicated the arrival of another visitor. The door slid open to reveal Elder Mool, now stooped with age but still commanding respect. Elder? Tech greeted him warmly. We weren't expecting you until the ceremony tomorrow. I wish to see the new archives without the crowds, the ancient Vriesen explained. He nodded respectfully to Miller. Ambassador, the council session went well? The multidimensional cooperation treaty passed with near unanimous support, Miller confirmed. The final phase of integration can begin. Elder Mool lowered himself carefully into a chair. I have lived 900 years, Ambassador. I have seen empires rise and fall. Never did I imagine I would witness a transformation as profound as what your species has catalyzed. We merely offered a different perspective, Miller said modestly. No, Mool countered gently. You offered a different future. One where diversity strengthens rather than divides. The elder turned to Tech. Have you shown him? Tech hesitated. I was saving it for the ceremony. Show him now, an old one's prerogative. With a nod, Tech activated his terminal and projected a holographic image between them. It was the cover of the new Galactic Archive's primary educational text, soon to be distributed to billions of students across thousands of worlds. The title glowed in multiple languages. Understanding Galactic Society. A multidimensional approach. And beneath it, the subtitle, What the Archives Are Now Saying About All of Us. Miller stared at it for a long moment, then laughed softly. Perfect.